So here it is, the film I've been waiting to see since 2012. Well, that's how I feel about every new Bond film that comes. So anyway, yeah, recently saw Spectre, and today I'm going to be talking about it, reviewing it, analyzing it for you guys. I'm gonna try to make this video with no spoilers because I really want you guys to see this movie. I would love for you guys to actually see this review and like actually go see it because of my opinion, and not just that, because other people have way better reviews than this, obviously. But yeah, so I'd really like you guys to see it. That's why I'll try not to do a lot of spoilers. I'll try not to do any. So this video is going to be a spoiler-free review. But that in mind, I will be going depth on a lot of different scenes in this film. For example, I will be like saying like, "Oh, I really like this scene." And here's why, and like I'll give you the detail of the scene and why I liked it. So I'll like it'll kind of be a mini spoiler, so if you really don't want to know that much about the film, I suggest like you skip some parts of this or just don't watch it at all. But I won't spoil like any key main plot holes or any unexpected deaths in this movie or anything like that. I won't spoil any of that for you guys because I want you guys to see it. And to be a Bond fan, you could start whenever. James Bond's almost like Star Wars. You could start whenever. You could start like let's say some a 6-year-old kid or something. Because I saw Bond when I was like 9 years old or 8 years old maybe. I think I was like 8 years old when I saw my first James Bond movie, and I loved it. It's almost like Star Wars. You could watch um James Bond right now, 2015, when you're 8 years old, and you'll probably like it. Well, that depends, but I mean, my point is that like you could start Bond whenever. It doesn't matter that the first film was 1962. It doesn't matter. It's like a Star Wars. It Bond and Star Wars are gonna live on forever and never be forgotten. So anyway, also another thing before I get started, this video is going to be long. I really want to talk about everything I thought about this film because James Bond holds a great place in my heart. I love it. It's my favorite franchise of all time, better than Star Wars. Yeah, so this video is going to be long, maybe like 10, 12, 13 minutes or so of me talking, so just to prepare you guys. Anyway, let's get started. If you see me look down, I apologize. I have 2 pages of notes here yeah, that's why I'm warning you it's going to be a long video. So anyway, let's get started. So going into this theater, when I saw it yesterday, I didn't hear a lot of news about this film. I heard like I knew what it was about. I saw the trailer, obviously. I believe I did a reaction for it too, on this channel somewhere. But anyway, I did not hear a lot about it. Now this is when I start to go in depth about different scenes. So maybe if you want to skip this part, because I'm going to be talking about the opening. But anyway, yes, they did do a gun barrel sequence, which I was so happy. They haven't done a proper gun barrel sequence since Die Another Day. They didn't do one in Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, and I mean they didn't do one in the opening. You know, the famous gun barrel sequence when Bond walks and shoots the cameraman in the little gun barrel. Amazing. And I've seen some videos of people recording it in theaters, and people are clapping during theaters. I remember I've had a few moments like that in theaters, like for example, one when I saw Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 in theaters, and when Mrs. Weasley killed Bellatrix, people were clapping, probably like diehard Harry Potter fans. Or when I saw Skyfall in theaters in 2012, people were clapping in theaters when Bond opens the garage and you see the Aston Martin. People were clapping, and kind of so was I. So I was thinking of clapping at that part when the gun barrel popped up, because I was like, yes, finally a good gun barrel. But the gun barrel overall, it's good that they showed in the beginning of the film, and I'm really glad they're doing that again. But the gun barrel, they didn't really get it right. It was just kind of like, I didn't like the background of it. It was too like white and like CGI in a way. Like it was like, whoa, it looked like kind of like a background that someone just like painted. Like it looked kind of not CGI, that was the wrong word, but kind of fakey. So the gun barrel of this film was a little disappointing, but still, it was good to see it. So, but I love the opening shot of the film. It's just one long take with a couple cuts, but yeah, overall what I love about this film is the filming. The filming is amazing. I really, really enjoy it. I would say At times, the directing of this film by Sam Mendes, the same guy who directed Skyfall, at times this film is better directed than Skyfall. I really love it, and I stand by that. Now, something that I wasn't so pleased about in this film was the soundtrack. Now, the soundtrack is also by the same person who composed the Skyfall soundtrack, Thomas Newman, and his soundtrack was very bland. I'd have to listen to it again, definitely, and I will, but when I was hearing it in theaters, it was just very. I did not like it. I really, especially, did not like the cheesy action scores that popped up. It was almost like a Avengers Age of Ultron soundtrack or like a superhero soundtrack where it's like it just sounds like a typical action movie soundtrack. There's not like one track or whatever that stands out like Skyfall did, like the Brave New World track of Skyfall. Love that track right there. That's one of my favorites on the Skyfall soundtrack. But anyway, there wasn't really like a theme or whatever that stood out too much in the film, which brings me back to what I was saying about like the cheesy action pieces, like especially in the beginning when Bond blows up the building, he's running, the floor from underneath him crashes down, he lands perfectly on the sofa, and they just play that like do 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 do, and it's like what? Like it's very cheesy and very annoying in my opinion, and I hate it. And they do that throughout the film as Bond does something epic or awesome, like saves someone or shoots someone. It plays a little do 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 like in a quiet monotone way. It's just like so stupid. I really got annoyed by that. And the soundtrack is just, it doesn't stand out. It just kind of like sounds like a typical action movie soundtrack and not very good. Like, you got the high notes, dun 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 dun. It's like, okay, give me something new. Now, speaking of the soundtrack, I'm going to talk about the main theme of this film, Writings on the Wall by Sam Smith. And, I'm not really sure what to think about this theme song. I heard it twice now. I heard it, well, of course, in theaters when I saw the film, and also afterwards, right after when I got home, I listened to the song again, and I just heard it recently before I did this review, and I still don't really know what to think. I mean, it's just kind of like, it's not good in my opinion. I don't really like it, but it's not like terrible. I'm not sure if I would call it decent or okay. It's kind of like, eh. I'll have to see the movie again, and once I see the movie again, then I'll be the judge of whether it's a good song or not. It's maybe the high notes that I don't like. Like the song goes up, and then it's like, I don't know. A perfect example would be Skyfall. That theme song was awesome with Adele. You had the and the sky fall, and we will stand tall and face it all together. That stuff. I'm sorry, I'm a bad singer, but that just gave me chills down my spine. The Skyfall thing, or the Skyfall theme. And this may be, I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's not like awful. So anyway, I might even do this review in two parts if it gets too long, but yeah. What I didn't like about this film, though, was so much negativity that reviewers were giving it. They were saying that, like, oh yeah, this film is, just like a traditional kind of Bond film that, like a You Only Live Twice, that's kind of forgettable or something. And it's really not. I love how they refer back to the previous films, the Daniel Craig films, such as Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and Skyfall. And if it's anything I like in this franchise, I think every Bond fan shares the same opinion as me on this. I love how referring back to other previous films, because normally in the old James Bond films, Sean Connery, Roger Moore, excuse me, they never really referred back to anything. It was almost like you could see the Bond films out of order, and you wouldn't really miss any, because that's how I saw all the films. I saw them out of order, but overall I've seen them all, obviously. But the Daniel Craig films, you really need to see from Casino Royale to Spectre in order to understand what's going on, which I really love that because I love how they refer back to the film and stuff, and they keep it somewhat original in the sense that Bond's kind of a womanizer in this, because in Skyfall, Quantum of Solace, and Casino Royale, he really did not make out with a lot of people in those films. he was just kind of a cold-blooded assassin. And another thing about this film, they really show Bond's character as just a cold-blooded assassin, almost like they did in Casino Royale, which another thing I really love. And Daniel Craig's performance is the best out of this is his best Bond film that he's done by far. He just kills it in this film. I think, yeah, he just does great. And the character of Bond, they show it even more, even though they showed it a lot in Skyfall. But I think you learn a little bit more about James Bond in this film, or maybe not you learn more, but they show more, and I really love. Now, most people complained about this film, about the subplot, and I really like the subplot. You know, I didn't love it, but I didn't mind it. It was just kind of there, and I accepted it. I just didn't like how the subplot ended. Now, the subplot was all about this guy, C, who was trying to shut down and debunk the Double O, shut down MI6, and, you know, it's kind of not really cliched because they did some different techniques and maneuvers when doing that subplot, but I just didn't like how it ended. Like, I'm not gonna spoil anything, because this is a spoiler-free review. I'll try not to spoil anything, but I'm not gonna give you the ending of the subplot. But the subplot, how it ended or how it concluded, it was just a waste. It was just kind of like I was watching this film for one, to see James Bond kick butt and do some crazy stuff. Two, well, because I was forced to see the subplot. And since you were forced to see this subplot that didn't really add much to the story, but for me, I didn't mind it, and it was still entertaining with great dialogue. But it was just kind of like it ended as in like that's it. Like I was watching this, and that's what you give me. It was just kind of a wait. Now, the Bond girl Madeline Swan in this film isn't really. She's just kind of a almost like an old-fashioned Bond girl, almost like a Stacy from A View to a Kill. Which her acting's good. I love the actor who or the actress who plays her, but her character's just kind of like there so Bond could get in bed with at the end. It's just kind of a cheap gimmick, if you will. Like I said before, I love how they mention previous characters from the Daniel Craig reboots of James Bond. I love when Bond's walking into the down like basement area of MI6 and well, I don't want to spoil the villain, but Christoph Waltz is teasing him and tormenting him and putting the pictures of Vesper, M, his fallen villains that he's killed, Lashif. Well, Lashif wasn't killed by Bond, but Lashif, Silver, and Mr. White, I believe, is in there, and yeah, I really really love that. It's so cool to see, like it's so cool, like I said, that they mention the previous you know previous things that happened throughout the Daniel Craig films. And another thing with that, I love the which I forgot to mention earlier, I love the title sequence of the film. Even though the song that I said isn't really my favorite Bond song, but I love the title sequence. It's so amazing how they show clips from Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and Skyfall. I love how they do that. They haven't done that since the Goldfinger title sequence, which was the third James Bond film. The lights just flickered again, or just went off. My basement, man. But anyway, they haven't done that since the Goldfinger title sequence, which I loved because they showed Vesper, they showed Silver, they showed Lashif, and it was like the real like Lashif and everything. It wasn't like a silhouette of them. It was amazing, and I loved it. Whew, gotta take a breath. Ray finds his M in this, returns again, and he is amazing. He does a lot of good field work and is really out there, and he's a very athletic and energetic M. He's not just like a Bernard Lee. As much as I love Bernard Lee, don't get me wrong, he's a great M. He's my favorite, obviously. But he's not just like an M where it's like, okay, Bond sitting behind a desk reading a newspaper, and he's just like, okay, Bond, yeah. Go kill this guy. Have a nice day. Goodbye. I mean, he's really like athletic and actually runs, shoots, jumps around, dodges bullets. I mean, he's in the field with Bond and helping him out on the missions, which I really love about this. And it shows a new sort of M that they're going to show later on in the film series, which I really love, or at least I hope they show in the new upcoming films of this franchise. Mr. White also returns, and his appearance was great. I loved his, again, not going to spoil anything, but I loved his conclusion, his exit to the film. Yeah, I loved that about the, yeah, I loved Mr. White in this film. It's amazing. Now, another controversial thing in this film was Dave Bautista as Mr. Hinks. Now, I think Mr. Hinks, now Dave Bautista plays him, the best he could for a man who doesn't talk throughout the film. He's a crap villain. Let me just say that. Not Dave Bautista, he does it great, but Mr. Hinks, he's just a crap villain. He's just a big, buff, muscular dude that Bond needs to fight. That's all it is. He doesn't give any story character. He's just a guy that tries to kill Bond, and he's just, all he is just a symbol of muscular guy that Bond needs to fight at the end and kill somehow. So for that, he's just a crap villain and pretty awful in my opinion. Probably could be not the worst Bond villain, not as worse as the villain from Quantum of Solace, but he's a pretty bad henchman. And a good way of a good henchman that they still could have pulled it off and gave Mr. Hinks some character would be like in From Russia with Love, the second James Bond film. Red Grant. He was a henchman and he was like buff and ripped and stuff, but they still gave him a lot of character, which I loved about that. And they should have done that to Mr. Hinks instead of just making him like a muscle goal type guy that Bond needs to fight and beat up at the end. I mean, he's just, and he's not very iconic either. He doesn't have any really special talents or anything like Oddjob did and Goldfinger throwing the hat and snapping people's necks. I mean, Dave Bautista or Mr. Hinks, he does gaw out someone's eye or something like. It's a little disturbing for a Bond film and graphic, but that's like it. And it's just kind of like okay, like anybody. I mean, like I don't know. It's not very special in a way. He doesn't have a special weapon or anything like that. He's just not an iconic villain, and I really was disappointed. I am glad though to wrap up this video. Probably another 2 more minutes, guys. Let me rant or not rant, but let me review for 2 more minutes, and then you're good. I love about this film though how they keep the villain of this film alive at the end. For him, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but they keep him alive for him to appear in other Bond films, which I know he will, because he's an iconic villain and he's Christoph Waltz. Now let me talk about Christoph Waltz. He is a great actor. I loved him in Django Unchained, as Dr. Schultz, the iconic Dr. Schultz. But anyway, he's a good Bond villain, but he shouldn't play the villain he is playing. I'm not going to spoil anything, so you'll have to see the movie for yourself to understand what I mean. But anyway, last thing I need to say is I really don't like. It's confusing with Bond and Madeline Swan, the Bond girl, of how like are they supposed to get together at the end? Is that supposed to be a romance thing? I'm really not that sure. Like, because you see him at the end driving off like in the Aston Martin, and it's like, are they like together now? Are they? Is she gonna be the next Bond girl? It just kind of doesn't make sense. But overall, whew, that was the longest movie review I've done yet, but I'm sorry to ramble on, guys, but I had so much to talk about. I know it seems like I'm ranting, but this film was super entertaining. I love it, and it exceeded my, it did good for a movie that I was waiting for, and for a Bond fan personally, I really enjoyed it. I'm probably gonna stay by my grade though. I do want to watch this movie again when it comes out on Blu-ray. But I'm gonna give Spectre a 9 out of 10. I really loved it. It had some flaws, definitely, but it had some big major flaws, and it had some minor flaws that I mentioned. I mentioned seriously everything in this review, but overall, it's very entertaining, and that's why I give it a 9 out of 10, because the entertainment value is so rewatchable and so good. If it wasn't that entertaining, if there wasn't a lot of action, then I'd probably give it like an 8 or 7 out of 10. Because this movie does have issues and does have flaws, but since it's so entertaining and so good with the direction and cinematography, I'm gonna have to give it a 9 out of 10. So anyway, guys, not my favorite Bond film, but still a darn good one. It's a good Bond film. Definitely see it. Anyway, whew. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. Good.